Hey guys, how's it going and welcome back. You getting feedback problems and you're not sure how to solve it? Well, I'll tell you what isn't causing it first. It's not your gain controls for your microphones and guitars, etc. that are coming in. So your gains are up here. They control your input signal, okay? So when you're setting up your devices, we'll say, okay? Now, you don't need to have any of these channels on, including your house. All you need to do is push the PFL button for what you want to do. And in the case of a dynamic microphone, these are microphones that are not requiring phantom power, nor do they require a battery, which is self-powered mics, okay? So this is just a dynamic mic. It's just a mic element, and in this case, it's a really cheap mic, so it does have an on and off switch. But a good mic does not have a switch on it, okay? So what you want to do is you want to get within about 2 inches of the mic, start talking into it, see where things sit, and you adjust your gain controls accordingly. Now, singers, of course, what you want to do with them is get them to sing at the loudest point that they would ever sing within any piece of music, okay? And they're going to have to do this a cappella. You don't want interference from other instruments while this is going on, okay? And you're going to do this for each microphone that's on your list, including any wireless mics. They will have their own receiver box at the mixing board. Those receiver boxes generally have level output controls for the input to your mixer for that channel that you're on. So you're going to want to make sure that those controls are generally set around either half or maybe even so 12 o'clock or maybe even in the 2 o'clock position at most, okay? Now you may or may not have to activate your pad switch, okay? I know in the case of my condenser mic that I have, it requires phantom power, and I don't have to have the pad control, and you can see that because it does have a powered system already, it's putting a large signal in, so I don't have to have my gain on channel 1 up very high, okay? That works out fantastic. My Line 6 wireless guitar unit, okay, now this is just a wireless transmitter that is completely battery operated. The main unit itself, or the base, which is also the charger in this case too, it's a stationary unit. Now with that, it's an extremely high output device already, and you cannot control it unless you activate the pad. Now depending on your mixing board, depends upon whether or not you have a 26 dB cut on that or a 20 dB. Mine's got 26, and I'm able to get around 1 o'clock on the dial and have a very good and proper signal through my PFL. Because you don't want to go past 0 technically. You want to keep that. Some people use the term unity gain, okay? The same way they would for the house speakers. They say put it here for unity gain. Well, we'll talk about that. Anyway, so get that signal so that, you know, at that loudest point, we're at about 6 on that. So really, I could actually turn this down a little bit because 6 is kind of pushing it. Okay, so I want to find my desk mic gain, which is here, and I'm going to just pull it back a few notches. Gain. So +3 is actually pretty good. You want to avoid any kind of red zones, but you also want to avoid this peak light. So if it's not like completely peaking here, it might be peaking here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's not. So we have no problems. A lot of engineers will tell you that that peak light, if it's a momentary thing that just kind of happens here and there, don't worry about it. I say do, because peak means distortion, means breakup. And that is something that you actually don't want to have in your recording because you're not going to filter it out, okay? So you want to avoid at all costs of that peak light ever coming on. Now, a lot of you may have boards that are not like basically as advanced as this 12 channel one happens to be. Okay, so you may not have a PFL channel, you may just end up with, you got peak lights, and you're gonna have to work with that, okay? And just watch the little peak lights down here and make sure that you dial it so that none of that is a problem. Now, the other thing is you need what's called headroom, okay? Now, headroom is gained by Well, this is a non-powered mixer in that there's no amplifier built in. It's just a preamp. So it needs to go into an amplifier, okay? And then that amplifier connects to passive speakers. Or you can use what's called bi-amped powered speakers, which everybody's going to. It's less equipment, it's less weight to haul around. The amplifiers are built into each speaker, and it's 2 amps per speaker. One's for the woofer, one's for your tweeter, okay? And these are very common nowadays, and they are the best solution, to be honest, because of, you know, so much less problems, less cables, less of everything. But even regardless, whatever amplifier, I would put that amp no more than 2 o'clock on the dial, because after that, THD, or total harmonic distortion, starts to kick in, or distortion period, or clipping, okay? There's a lot of different names for it all. And the same on your bi-amp speakers. Don't just turn the dials right full blast. That's not going to help you, okay? So stick it around 2 o'clock on the dials for the volume, and that part will be fine. Now, headroom. You need lots of headroom in these sliders, lots of movement, okay? This way, if you're dealing in a situation where you're in a really big place, you need to do a proper mix no matter what anyways, but you need the room on the sliders in order to give you the best results so that you can get a proper mix, all right? So this is where they talk about having this here. Now, I agree with that scenario where this should be at 0, okay, to start with, and then you see how much headroom you have, okay? Now, when it comes to, oh, I don't have any slider room left, well, something is definitely wrong. When it comes to a person at a microphone, especially a regular mic, not a headset mic, people waver in and out on their mic, so they don't know how to hold them right. You're going to have to teach them how to hold their mic within 2 to 4 inches at the very most from their mouth, because dynamic mics don't have the greatest pickup, but they do have the best sound. So you got to learn to deal, okay? So anyways, in that case, you're going to want to bring your levels back down on everybody, and then push your house up a couple more notches. This is going to give you more amplification power. It's going to increase your headroom here, so you won't have to have as much of the fader in use, so that if you do need to bring levels up much, much higher, you will be able to do that because you will have the room. Now, what happens with feedback? Well, we've already discussed it's not your gain control, obviously. But feedback could be too much mid-range, too much treble on your EQing, okay? It could also be a bass kind of low frequency feedback. That's your bass control. Now, as far as the world of physics and the universe and everything else that powers a BB, there is no such thing as all males are in this direction and all females are in this direction on your EQ. That is a total pile of garbage. And people who practice that, well, I'm sorry, but they really don't know what they're doing, okay? Everybody's voice is different, male or female. Some guys sound like girls, some girls sound more like a guy. It's kind of weird, especially out of a girl, but, you know, because we have this mindset. But it is a true fact, okay? You need to EQ your vocalist so that they have a beautiful sounding voice with the EQ, or as best as you can possibly do with that person, because nobody's perfect, right? So if you have feedback issues going on, you've got too much of something or too little of something else, or a combination thereof of both. You need to know how to adjust that. Now, the hardest time to adjust EQing, of course, is with a set of headphones on your head, okay? And you don't necessarily PFL the channel because it's going to blow your ears out of your head, so be careful about that. So you want to have the cleanest possible signal. So PFL, that's no way to do it. So what you have to do is you've got to get rid of the house as much as you can so that it doesn't interfere with your headset, and then you go into monitor area, or you can use the headphones, okay? Either one of these will work fine. Now, monitor is for having reference monitors at your board. These work really well, but that means you need to be in a completely isolated and preferably soundproof booth to use monitors. So I tend to stay away from that myself. I use the headphones here, okay? You'll notice that you have stereo and group in this case. So if you go to group, this is definitely going to give you a much better sound quality over anything, okay? And you'll be able to EQ. You cannot EQ, by the way, an auxiliary channel. Auxiliary channels are for your auxiliary amps on stage. I suggest you get rid of those because they're going to be your first #1 problem. They always have been, they always will be. Even we got rid of our stage monitors because it's nothing but feedback issues and I need more of this on my voice, I need more of that on your voice. Well, guess what? You're not gonna get that. Sorry, that's not what these monitor channels for the auxes are for. Okay, the aux has nothing to do with that. It's just to get a level of you in there so that you can hear your instrument, hear yourself, hear whoever else you want, if you're going to do it that way. More and more professional musicians, on the other hand, even if you're not a professional, it does not matter. You're best that if you really want to have that blaring in your head, get switched over to an in-ear monitor system. Then at least you can have that auxiliary channel in your head and you're not going to get feedback no matter how close you are to a mic. Because with the stage monitors, if they're too close to the microphone, that's going to cause feedback at louder volumes. And musicians do tend to, over time, go deaf, okay? Especially if you're used to listening to loud music or playing in a band with obnoxiously loud music, you're going deaf. So in that case, stage monitors are going to be nothing but a fight and a hassle. And if you have too much stage noise from those monitors, your engineer cannot control the house. And we've run into all these problems. So our best solution was, at first, we left the main speakers down in front of us in the sanctuary, because we're talking church setup for us, okay? So they're in front of us. We're behind them. That's not a big deal. Gives the board a lot more headroom to work with before feedback can happen, okay? Because feedback is also a volume issue too, too much. And you're too close to speakers, too much volume, you get feedback, okay? Anyway, that was a short-lived experiment. So we ended up moving the speakers in behind us on the stage. Now, we don't have a very big stage, okay? And so that means that you got to be more centralized and you got to angle your speakers as such that they don't point so much toward you, but more toward your audience. This also helps give you more headroom out of your board, less chance for feedback. But you're still back to the EQing issue. You can still get it if your volume starts going up too high and your EQ is not set right for that person's voice, okay? And that's going to be another problem. Now, instruments like guitars generally don't feedback, okay? Acoustics can, and for that you can get an acoustic sound hole cover for your guitar and you can plug that hole and that reduces feedback, okay? It's not 100%, but it's about more like 80%, okay? So, now I can tell you from my own personal experience, we don't need to crank 2,000 watts per side up in our sanctuary, okay? We do have it up there a bit because we got to get over the crowd too while they're singing, right? Because this is church, right? Congregation singing. So we do have to have enough volume that we're over top of them enough that they can follow us, etc. I personally, I sit right beside our piano player, and her and I are no more than 5 feet from the one speaker. But my mic is not turned up enough that I'm going to have a feedback issue because I want mine lower, and I need mine lower because I'm not the lead singer anyway. It's either going to be a female in the one group or it's going to be our male who also plays guitar in our other group. So I can get away with even my guitar and the speaker is well enough over top of our heads, high enough that we can get a fair amount of volume out of there without my guitar or my vocals causing any issues. And a piano, electric piano, will not cause a feedback issue on the system, okay? So certain things do and certain things don't. It's mostly feedback is because of some sort of a microphone setup that is, you know, what it is. Like dynamic mics, they're known to feedback. Headset mics, they can easily feedback because the mic is in a stationary spot on your head and it's up closer. You got to figure out where that sweet spot is to also avoid plosions as well with headsets. And headsets put out a heck of a lot more signal into your board. So again, you've got to learn how to control that so you get the right PFL on that channel. Then at least your PFL is set. From there, you got to do your EQing because you're doing live. Whenever you're doing a live set, you have to EQ each person. Acoustic guitar players, you guys are about the worst, and I can agree, I'm one of them, but I used to be actually. I am a guitar player, but what I don't do is I don't EQ my system on my guitar. So if you have an acoustic electric guitar, you must have your gain set around half, and if all you have is a tone control, put it at half. If you have a multi-band EQ, make sure they're right in the 0 position or 12 o'clock position, okay, which is halfway. Let the sound engineer control your guitar. They know what they're doing to make sure that your guitar is EQ'd properly so that it sounds good and no chance of feedback, okay, once it's dialed in right. And that's pretty much about it. I mean, there's not a ton of rocket science behind this thing, but a lot of people do first go to that gain control. Too much gain, turn it down. No, it's not the gain. The gain is not the issue. Let me figure out what your issue is. It's probably just you anyways, right? Which in most cases, it's that person. It's not going to be your gain control. If your gains are set according to each instrument, etc., yeah, gain is not going to be an issue no matter which way you look at it. You can put those gains full blast. That is not going to cause feedback at all. What causes the feedback is going to be you're too high on the slider, too close to the speakers, and or your EQing is off, okay? It's bad. And believe it or not, there is a saying that says sometimes less is more, and that is very, very correct, okay? So just because somebody has a bassy voice, for example, that doesn't mean you get to turn off their mid-range and their treble and throw bass in there, because all you're going to do is give a low frequency feedback or some other problem. And if you add too much mid and too much treble to a bass singer, you're going to make them sound like crap. So, less is more, and a lot of times with bass singers, yes, you definitely got to pull back their trebles and their mids, but you're going to have those kind of adjustments on regular singers too, so it doesn't matter. It's all in how you have to dial in that person's voice to make it sound mwah, okay? And adding effects on singers like reverb, definitely a good idea. It really enhances the quality of the voice. Just don't add too much reverb, okay? It doesn't take a lot, okay? But it's there as an accent to help make that vocal sound so much more nicer, okay? But anyways, that's what I got for you on this one. Hope it helps. Well, if not, I don't know what to tell you, because that's what I've learned over 40 years of messing with these things myself since I was a kid, and I'm still messing with them today, and pretty sure I know what I'm doing, okay? But to each their own, I guess, right? Anyhow, that's it. That's all. Thanks for watching, and we'll stay tuned for the next one. See ya.